Turk is something we usually don't work with in theater because our product, our experimentation is on the stage.
I proposed that I would research solo performance pieces and autogenesis work during the summer, and throughout that research and kind of study of the history of one-person shows, develop my own creative writing piece.
It is kind of an outcast as far as the typical Turk project, which is much more research-driven and book-heavy and that kind of stuff.
And I saw Billy Crystal's one-man show, 700 Sundays, and I was standing room only in the back, but I was mesmerized, and it was from that point that I really started to seriously consider this project.
We proposed the project, that he was able to write his own play and then produce it, and we have worked with getting him grants along the way, and he's worked on other fundraising.
I gave him some material that I've had off and on. I directed several one-person shows back in New York, but he watched the one-person things that I gave him, and he clearly absorbed what they were doing.
The show is autobiographical. I talk about my whole life, growing up in Texas as a Jew.
Okay, Jordy Pordy, you have fun with your bar mitzvah lesson.
About growing up as the middle child.
This is how my 7-year-old mind remembers it. Okay, it's time for the Herskowitz family meeting. Is everybody here?
My career as a professional mascot, I was Captain Kane for TU, and Hornsby for the Tulsa Drillers, and in high school I was the Chick-fil-A cow. The through line with the whole show is me as the mascot and how my own identity has come from, you know, what is behind the mascot costume and who am I once I take this costume off.
Sorry, I bet it's hot in there, huh? Okay, and 1, 2, oh. Mascot, I don't see you smiling.
Both my brothers, my older and younger brother, were born with cystic fibrosis. My younger brother, Richie, was born with a much more severe case of it. When I started to get involved with Turk and started to write this show, I knew that I wanted this story to be a part of the show. I did a stage reading of the show my sophomore year here at the theater. And afterwards, Michael Wright, my professor, led a talk back to kind of see what was working and what wasn't.
It was amazing to watch him go from his initial performance, which was just an in-house thing in front of the theater students, to the performances that he did for a larger, more public audience, and to watch the development of that.
It was really starting to come together. And then at the end of October, so really a month from that reading, was when Richie passed away. After Richie's death, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with the piece.
Reality just came and presented itself. You know, when Richie died, you know, we all wondered, okay, what's going to happen to this piece? And is Jordan going to continue, or is his heart going to be so broken that he won't want to go forward with it?
I sort of just wrote kind of those last moments that I remembered with him, going home for the funeral, and all of those things that sort of came with his death. And I added it into the show, and I read it through. And as I read it through, it was the first time that I felt the piece was complete.
It transformed and changed exactly how the show was framed and what it was about, and it increased the worth of it to him and the purpose of it, I think, because it took on a much larger context.
He did what I think all gifted artists have to do, which is to take the stuff that happens to you and find some creative mode to put it in, and he did it. He was very successful with it.
My research question was, can creative drama be a successful outlet to underprivileged children living in a township? I mean, I thought I had seen poverty, and I was just blown away with what I was being confronted with. There was this very positive reaction coming from these students, even if it wasn't as much focused on the drama itself, and if they were, you know, ready to go on Broadway, but that they were growing their own self-esteem and self-confidence in an outlet that's not offered in their schools. I've taken, you know, from the beginning of the project that was just a fun idea in my head, to this thing that could be performed in South Africa for these underprivileged children that might not understand every American colloquialism that I'm bringing up, but understand the essence of the piece and the story that I'm trying to share. We as people all share the sort of common denominator of humility and understanding for each other and growth in our own lives and how we can relate that to each other. And I'm also thankful for Turk to really to back a project that is very different for Turk.
You know, in the long run, what we're talking about here is redefining, rethinking what research means.
You know, it's just a different side of the brain that's working, I guess.
What can he say about modern Judaica? What can he say about young people in the world? What can he say about families who suffer from the kind of trauma that his family suffered with, through his creative work? I mean, and so the doors are incredibly open. He just has to decide which ones he's going to start walking through and see where that takes him.
My professors and Turk's involvement in really wanting to back the project and the performance was crucial in those early steps and initial stages of getting the work to where it is today.
Offering this in an area where suddenly research is completely redefined becomes a different mode altogether. And if the research means watching other performers and seeing how they handle an audience just themselves and bare minimum of props, to me that's fantastic research, and it certainly opens up all kinds of doors from there.
I'm going to tour Europe this summer, and I have performances lined up in England and Germany and Austria. And following those summer performances, I'm going to load up the show into my car. I'm going to travel cross-country performing the show in any venue that will take me, big or small, living room or stadium-sized theater.
Jordan will go out in the world and take his gifts as an actor and as a person, and somehow he's going to make a really wonderful career out of doing that.